Welcome to my channel, Urja Potentials. Today we shall look at a manuscript known as the Cotton Nero AX. Now, what is this manuscript all about? There are four Middle English texts which are anonymous, and the Cotton Nero manuscript houses these four texts. Now, what is Cotton Nero all about? There was this gentleman called Robert Bruce Cotton. He was Sir Robert Bruce Cotton, and he was a member of parliament in the late 16th century. And he was also somebody who was fond of collecting books. His house was very close to the Houses of Parliament, and so he frequently had visitors over at his house. And there would be members of parliament, there would be people related to politics, there would be scholars, there would be all kinds of people. And he was interested in the kind of conversation that was going on, and he was certainly a scholarly person. Now, what he did was this. After the dissolution of monasteries, now that happened in the reign of King Henry VIII, when Henry VIII made England Protestant and he rejected Roman Catholicism, he ordered the dissolution of monasteries, and these monastic libraries had some very, very valuable manuscripts. They had texts, they had manuscripts, and these just went from hand to hand when the dissolution of monasteries happened. And Sir Robert Bruce Cotton, he went forth trying to collect all those manuscripts. He bought them, he paid a price for them, he got them bound, and this is how he put together a manuscript known as the Cotton Nero AX. Now, this AX is the numbering of the manuscript. Now, this particular manuscript contains four anonymous poems. The first is a beautiful poem called Pearl. The second is a poem called Purity, or what they call cleanliness. It is actually purity. And the third is patience. And the fourth and final one is Sir Gawain or Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Now, Sir Robert Bruce Cotton was very particular about his personal library, and let's say Francis Bacon, Sir Walter Raleigh, they frequently came to the library, they used the texts here. And after the death of Sir Robert Bruce Cotton, his son maintained the library, and after the death of the son, the grandson continued to maintain the library, but the grandson decided to gift this library to the nation. And so what later on came to be called as the British Library began this way. It began with Sir Robert Bruce Cotton's personal library. Now, let's look at the texts which are contained in this particular manuscript. And the first is a poem called Pearl. Now, Pearl is a poem in 20 sections. It contains 101 stanzas. Each stanza has 12 tetrameter lines. A tetrameter line has 8 syllables. So, this is how the poem is structured. Now, let's look at what the theme and the story is about. You could interpret the 4 texts which are contained in this manuscript as kinds of religious texts, and you could add, other interpretations of your own. For the time being, let us look at the first poem, Pearl, as a kind of a religious text. It has a religious tone to it. Now, there is a man who is actually a grieving father. He has lost his daughter, somebody whom he adored, and that little girl has died, and the father is grieving over her death. Now he finds himself asleep. He goes and he sleeps somewhere near her grave, and he enters a dream state. This is a dream allegory, which was a very fashionable kind of poetry writing in the Middle Ages. And this man, in his dream, he enters a garden state. It's a beautiful garden. You could call it the Garden of Eden or whatever you like. It is a beautiful garden, and there are all kinds of jeweled trees, and the grounds are littered with gems. It is a beautiful place, and he enters that garden and he looks at a stream in front of him. The stream is flowing by, and the stream contains all kinds of gems, glittering gems. And on the other side of the stream, he sees a palace-like structure. In fact, he sees 2 structures, and he is, eager to cross the stream and go that side. He wants to go over. And so he starts walking, looking for a place. He's looking for a bridge or a moat of some kind which will help him to cross over. And he's able to find none. He keeps walking, and it gets higher and higher, and he realizes that crossing this is impossible. Now, when he looks to the other side, he's amazed to see his little child whom he had lost, that lost daughter, his Pearl. And he's amazed and he doesn't know what to do. He feels that she is not aware of his presence, and by calling out to her, he might just disturb her or frighten her, and she may just disappear. So even while he is toying with the idea of what to do, the girl looks at him and she sort of addresses him. And he's very pleased with that. And he tells the girl that he would like to, cross over and come to her side. And the little girl, although she was so small, she suddenly seems very mature and knowledgeable. And she tells him, no, 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 that's absolutely not possible. This girl looks radiant. She's bejeweled. She has got pearls all over. There's a pearl crown on her head, and there's a huge, beautiful pearl right in the center of her dress. Her dress is full of pearls. And this little girl tells him that it's not possible for him to cross over and go to the other side. He asks why he cannot do that. He wants to be with her. He tells her how much he has grieved over her loss. He says that I'm a jeweler and I have lost a pearl. Can't you see my grief? It fell in the grass, and it was so valuable. It fell in the grass and it just vanished. Now what do I do? And that girl admonishes him. She tells him that if you were truly a good jeweler, you would be able to see that your pearl is today locked up in a box very, very safely, so you ought to be happy. So he doesn't know what to say. She further tells him that you cannot just cross and come over. One can come here only by the will of Christ. And it is Christ's will that you have to have the purity of a child in order to come here. So this man doesn't know how to answer her. So he now approaches her with another question. He asks her, okay, tell me a little bit about your life here. And she seems happy to answer him. She tells him that, see, I live here like a queen. Here in this land, we are all like queens and we are all like kings. No one deprives the other of anything here. And there are 144,000 brides of Christ, and I am one of those brides. He's very surprised because the questions that he's asking are from the earthly point of view. God's bride, 144,000 brides, and how can one not, deprive the other of something? These are questions in his mind. And the girl understands those, and she says that, see, you cannot understand those questions and the answers to those questions standing where you are standing. Here, there is no such thing. There is nothing called deprivation. And the greatest of all here is Virgin Mary. She's the Empress Absolute here, but we are all queens here. And so she gives that answer to him. Now, there is another question that this man is wanting to ask. He asks her, okay, so many priceless pearls here. It cannot be that y'all are just lying around here on the ground. I can see this, one building, perhaps it is Jerusalem, but where do you live? Jerusalem of King David, that I understand, but where do you live? Where do the others live? There must be some place where you are kept securely. So, which is that place? She tells him, okay, I lead you on. You walk on that side of the stream, and I'll walk on this side of the stream, and we'll walk side by side. The stream will be between us. So now this man starts walking. And as they walk on and on and on, they come to a beautiful bejeweled palace. It's something far more grand than a palace, and it seems to have walls, and there are beautiful trees, and in the center of it you can see a rich throne, and this man can see God himself sitting on the throne. And at the foot of the throne, there's a river flowing, a grand, majestic, bright, beautiful river of light. And this is the river of grace. And so this river is flowing, and this man gets so excited. He sees those, other brides, and he looks at the splendor of this place, and he wants to be a part of this place. He doesn't want to be on earth anymore. He wants to come to this heavenly abode. And so he decides that enough is enough. I'm going to just jump into this stream. And as he tries to leap forward, he wakes up from that dream. He was dreaming near the grave of his daughter. He wakes up there, and then he realizes that, it was vain of him to think that he could go to that land before the appointed hour. And then he understands two beautiful things which are, all about those two poems, although the poems are about other things. but those two essential names, purity and patience. So the little girl, even before she knew the Lord's Prayer or anything, she had reached that land. How did she reach that land? Through purity. So, purity and the innocence of a child allows the person to reach that land. And the other way is patience. One has to wait, one has to serve, one has to express that loyalty and devotion to the Lord, and then one is received there. That happens through patience. So, all these things are contained in that poem, Pearl. Now, this is anonymous. We will not be looking at the other two texts, uh, Purity and Patience. They are not as well known as Pearl and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So, we'll directly go over to Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and we will do it in the next video.